2, 3, 4.
Who y'all came to see tonight? Who gon' get the ladies feeling something? Ooh, we gon' lock this groove in tight.
Yeah, we'll lock it in there.
Don't have us lock this groove down for nothing. Oh, oh, lock, and we got what you came to see.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
It's about that time to get out your seats and make some noise for our host. Give it up for Bootsy Collins.
Well, alright. It is I, Blaster of the Universe, Smooth Silver himself. Fellas, I hope you got something in your cup. And ladies, don't be afraid to make your way to the stage for a band that I named.
Hey, it's Ray Mcguire, and today I want to tell you about my plan to close the wage gap between women and men in New York City. As we work towards the biggest and most inclusive comeback in New York City's history, we need to focus extra attention on those who have been most impacted. Women, and especially women of color, have been hit hardest by the economic disaster brought on by COVID. That's why I'm announcing a plan to address some of the major factors that push women out of the workforce and keep them out. Number one, I am committed to finally eliminating the wage gap in New York City, and that starts with New York City government. White male city workers currently make an average of $4,500 more a year than women, and that gap gets even wider for women of color. Even at the highest levels of City Hall, women make 10% less than their male colleagues. When I'm mayor, that changes. Starting day one with my senior team, then working with our labor unions to bring pay equity to the full city workforce. And we're not stopping with government. If you want a tax incentive or a city contract, we will want to see your records on pay equity. Finally, I will provide working New Yorkers access to childcare. My Affordable Childcare for All initiative will provide more funding for childcare workers, many of whom are women, and help more parents re-enter the workforce. I'm running for mayor because I can get New York City back to work faster than anyone. My vision for how this will work is outlined in my comeback plan. We can stage the biggest comeback in New York City's history, but let's also make it the most inclusive.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is one-on-one live with Ray, and I'm going to bring Ray on in a minute, but I want to just welcome you all to our conversation this evening, where we have an opportunity to bring New Yorkers to our, I guess, video square box to ask Ray questions directly about issues that are important to them about the future of our city. We've had an incredible week. As you just saw, I shared the video where Ray talked about his plan in terms of closing the pay gap for women and men in this city. We're going to bring him on to talk more about that. He also participated in a number of forums, so I'm going to bring him on so he can talk about exactly what he has done this week. But first, Ray, you were late again.
Was I late?
Yes.
See, I know I got some explaining.
Yes, and you can't use your mom this time. You can't use your mom this week.
What happened was, I tried to call my mother, but she wasn't there. And then Leo came in, and he was down playing with 2K, and I had to get him off of multitasking 2K and Pokemon at the same time. Then I wanted him to go read the Dogman book and then draw, so things got a little delayed. I'm sorry. I don't,
That sounds like excuses to me.
No, I'm just explaining. I'm explaining to you what happened.
I
What's
understand.
up, Al Joy? What's going on?
Like things are, things are living. I broke out my Nefertiti from 1986.
Look at you. Go ahead on, Royalty. Look at you. Step back. Woo, look at you.
I even got my mama's glass.
Woo,
poured a
look at
little
you
something.
got your mama's glass. You got that Nefertiti, that Nefertiti. You know, I am black yet comely. Look at you. Don't think I
It's
don't know
women,
what's up.
it's like from Black History Month to Women's History Month, right? And so, I'm bringing it together.
You always get it together. You ain't just bringing it together tonight. Your stuff's always together. It's always
Oh
like,
Lord,
I can get that emoji. You know what that emoji that reminds me of you? You know what that is?
which
It's
one?
got two. One is 100, the other's fire.
Oh,
That's
okay,
it.
all right. I was scared for a minute. I had
Don't
to
be
check.
afraid. No. Don't be scared. Don't need to be scared. Don't be scared. No.
Well, let's talk about your week though, because you did do a couple of forums, including a bike forum.
I did a bike forum. So let's be clear. I have it here. They told me what I did. I did 40 plus Zooms, not including all the preparation that you carry me to. And then I did a bike forum. I did a lot of forums. I mean, a lot of forums.
But the bike one is personal to you because you ride a bike through the city, don't you?
Yeah, I ride a bike. Yeah,
you have a helmet. You have a helmet and everything.
And everything. I ain't got them, but I want to tell you, I ain't got them little tight shorts.
Oh no, too much.
I do not have them little tight shorts and them little itty bitty shoes. I don't have that. No, I don't have. I be straight up. I wear whatever sneakers I have. I can't wear the Bread 11s out there because they're not so happy with when I do that. So I do have a bike, and if my bike is in storage, then I go do the city bike. I like the city bike. You know the ones I like with the motors. I like the one.
I didn't know that they have the ones with the motor. I have a love-hate relationship with City Bike. I love using it for when I want to use a bike and not having to own one. But I hate the fact that they take up parking in some places in the city, which I think is a whole New Yorker thing. Like everybody has this yes, I want to ride a bike, but no, don't take up 4 parking spots on my block. So,
no. I talked to a parking lot guy today, and fascinating what he's doing. Fascinating. What is it? There are, parking lots of the future. What they're doing. I'm looking for my notes from that conversation. That was wow. That was parking lots are the future. You got to have pods, proximity on demand services. There's some things that are out there now. You got charging stations. You got
I saw there's more charging stations opening up in Brooklyn. I saw that too.
And in garages. And they may, you're going to get dirigibles, you're going to get helicopters, you're going to get drones coming in to deliver packages.
I don't know.
We're going to be by 2026, we're going to have 20 million electric vehicles. 2026. That is my calculation. 5 years from now.
I'm in favor of electric vehicles.
You got a Tesla? You got a Tesla?
I want a Tesla. My husband won't let us get one. One, because he said they don't have a minivan yet. And two, a Tesla
minivan.
I got kids.
Them Tesla can't handle all them kids, to be straight up with you. Y'all got like 2 Teslas at least. How many kids y'all got?
Well, right now, 3. Who knows how many we'll have by then? But
y'all heard it here. Shots fired.
Oh gosh! All right, I want to go on because you also released a video.
You said that. I'm listening carefully. So you don't know how many y'all gonna have by 2026. That's something going down now. You don't need to tell us all your business.
I'm moving on. I'm just
saying, 20, y'all got 3 now. I'm counting. I'm at 3 now. And then 2026 is 5 years from now. Okay. We got it. I done the math.
Okay. So the campaign also released this week a video of you talking about the women in your life given this campaign. So I want to share that with people, really to give me a break from you and your math. So I'll share it now.
I can bring it up. I'm just listening to you.
We'll share the video.
Women they're essential to all our lives, but they made me who I am. They made me the man that I am today. I go through my life and look at the women who surrounded me, who lifted me up, who prayed for me every day, who encouraged me every day. I can remember the earlier days in grade school, in elementary school. There was a Miss Rickman. It appeared as though she always took a little time with me. Then there was a teacher, fifth grade teacher, who today I owe so much to, if not everything, in education. Ellen Moore. And she was the one who in the fifth grade decided I had some talents and suggested to my mother that we consider a school that had been recently built in the suburbs. It was Ellen Moore's support and her identification of me as somebody who had talent that began my journey in education. And then there was in the 11th grade, Robin Melnick. And Robin Melnick said, if you're as good as they say you are, go test yourself against the big boys and girls in the East. And I would credit Mrs. Rickman, Ellen Moore, and Robin Melnick to my journey in education. They were the ones who invested in me, which is what we want to have for all of our children. I could not do this without Crystal. I could not do this and would not have been able to get to anywhere that I've gotten to without my mother and my grandmother. So my dear 95-year-old mother is the source. I wouldn't be here without my mother and all of her sacrifices. And as a social worker, as a mother who cared not only about our family, but cared so deeply about other families, especially those who were the most vulnerable, the most marginalized. My grandmother's a warrior. When my mother was working, my grandmother was there to take care of us. My grandmother she was the foundation to the family. Crystal and Ella, these are my rock stars. Ella won't be denied. Ella is brilliant. She is artistic. She is athletic. She is just an extraordinary young woman. And Crystal, she's my better three-quarters wife. She, too, is a force of nature. She is an ex-lawyer, a documentary film producer. She's an author. She has done all things. So I'm so deeply grateful and humbled by the force and the strength and the power and the brilliance and the beauty and the art of these extraordinary Black women. My economic comeback is to be the greatest, most inclusive economic comeback, because I want to make certain that under my leadership that women are treated based on their merits, that they're given the opportunity to invest, and we invest in women, that we support women so that when they get the opportunity to go do what they're uniquely positioned to do, that is to lead.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, that's like the truth there. That's all right. I don't think I'd seen that. That is moving. That's my journey. That is my journey.
You talk about this a lot, about your mother, your grandmother, the women in your life, and the impact that they had in your career and in your early life. So I like that, because it kind of encapsulates all that you owe to the women in your life.
To be clear, I want to be clear, Joy. I owe everything to the women in my life. Everything. I wouldn't be here without that. So that is I'm so grateful. I'm so honored and so privileged and humbled. That is, my mother's 95 years old. My mother-in-law is 95 years old. And these are extraordinary human beings. Extraordinary.
So something else that happened this week that I know touched you personally, I've heard you talk so much since I've known you since the summer, about the impact and the relationship that you have with Vernon Jordan, who passed away this week. And I wanted to give you a few minutes to also talk about his impact on your life personally.
If I think about Vernon Jordan, I think about Franklin Thomas. They are best friends. And I got a note early in the morning earlier this week. It said Vernon had passed. And there you kind of focus on the history and the impact. And if I think about the civil rights movement and the gains that we have been able to make across the spectrum of civil rights, across the spectrum, race, yes, but gender, yes. All the rights, LGBTQ, yes. Race, across the spectrum of race, religion, across the spectrum of religion. I think about Vernon Jordan, and I think about the stand that he took in his leadership and the impact that he had on lives, so many lives, and not on just the large scale, but the scale on which he had lives with individuals, how he mentored so many, and how he took the torch, and how he passed that torch, and how he took the ladder, and how he extended the ladder. And Vernon Jordan, and I keep coming back to the relationship that Vernon Jordan had with Franklin Thomas. And there's one other one who history will record, who also is a mentor, is Clarence B. Jones. Clarence B. Jones is the one who helped to craft the I Have a Dream speech. And Clarence B. Jones was the one who went to the Chase Manhattan Bank vaults and got the money from John D. Rockefeller to go get Martin Luther King Jr. out of Birmingham jail. So I think about these titans on whose shoulders I personally stand and on whose shoulders this country stands. Just think about the influence and the impact of Vernon Jordan. Unassailable. History's got to record this as one of the greatest Americans that has ever lived. He paved the way for so many of us to be where we are and who we are across the spectrum, from social justice to civic justice to economic justice, and what he stood for, and the dignity and the brilliance and the intelligence and the wisdom, all of that combined in what history will record and what nature will record is one of the greatest gifts that has ever come from on high. There is very few in history to whom we can look and say, yes, he made a difference. There are very few in history whose actions I can emulate and say, yes, this is based on how he conducted himself and based on his leadership and based on his style and based on his ability to bridge the gap, to bridge the divide that we all are experiencing today. And that divide has only grown wider, and Vernon Jordan pulled us all together. He pulled us all together in ways that we need to be pulled together. So if I think about the impact that Vernon Jordan had on the country, on the world, on the city, and on me, it has been profound. I wouldn't be here without Vernon Jordan. And by the way, none of the rest of us would be either. So thank you for acknowledging the transition of Vernon Jordan. We're going to have his homegoing service next Tuesday. And that will be one of the greatest homegoing services. And I know he's looking down. As they say in my church, he's already collected his crown. He's already crossed Jordan. So we're just going to go celebrate that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I've only had the pleasure of meeting him once. And is one of those instances of meeting someone you've read about, in history books or heard people have conversation about. And the mere fact that, someone was introducing he and I, and, he said, "Nice to meet you, young lady." And I was like, "Oh my God, Vernon Jordan spoke to me." So
you were never, you were regal then. I know you were. I know you were.
It was one of those things that's similar to, I got an opportunity to interview and spend some time with John Lewis as well. And it was the same kind of, feeling, right? Like you have read about and, heard stories about and engaged with. And so then to actually be in person with them. And so I can only imagine for yourself, not only having that, but then actually getting to know him and interacting and be part of family, be part of, a working relationship and mentee of his. I can understand the pull at your heart, but also being glad of his crossover as you mentioned. So
I'll tell you, Joy, not so long ago, Vicki Jordan, his daughter, was here, and we spent time together. We've been friends for a long time. And when Vicki was leaving, she handed me 2 checks, contributions to the campaign. One was from her, and one was from Vernon. And I can tell you, there's nothing more inspiring. He held the torch through the storm. And to the extent that we have the opportunity to pick that torch up and to keep it going, especially today, Joy, we have to do that. Yeah. There's no cavalry coming. And if we don't get it done, it's not going to get done.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I have folks waiting in the wings to
All right,
ask you
what you got?
questions.
We got past the 2026, 2025. We got past what's going to happen then on the math. I know you're kind of a little shy right about now, but we're going to carry on.
Oh my gosh. Well, before I bring on, we have two video guests, but there's a question here that I think you'd appreciate, and I'd love to hear the response to this. There's a question from someone on Facebook on how hard is the day-to-day campaigning for someone who's new to it?
Well, it is very efficient on the one hand to do about 40 to 50 Zoom calls, but sitting in a chair, listen to Eljoy say, this is what you need to do differently. This is what you need to do better. You need to smile a little bit more. You need to sit back. You need to lean forward. You need to turn this way. You need to turn that way. You got a great camera, but, smile a little bit. So apart from that, which is efficient, but, can take its toll. The great thing about it is being out in the neighborhood, talking to people. Mm-hmm. And the more we connect with people and the more people know that we are they and that our goals are strictly informed by what's in the best interest in New York, means I got no agenda other than that. That is really inspiring because I'm hearing the issues, many of which I knew about, some of which are new issues, in large part brought on by COVID. It has been an uplifting, inspiring time to spend. And the more I'm out talking to the people, the better off I am.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about what you're doing this weekend, and maybe following social distance protocols. Maybe some folks can chime in. But I do have
I won't be riding my bike. I know you asked about that bike, so I don't think I'm gonna ride my bike there. I'm gonna hold off.
No, don't ride your bike from there to Brooklyn. Don't do that.
But what I'm gonna do, I could do this though. I could do that. I know you got some questions, but what I'm gonna take my bike to the train and then take the train. I could do that. I think the people in the campaign, I don't think they'll let me do that, but I'm just thinking really, no, that's
logistically from a for the campaign team. I'm helping you out right now and telling you.
I know you got my back. I know that. I got you. I understand that. So what do we got from either the chat or wherever y'all got it from? Who's coming with what? Let's do this.
Oh, well, I have coming up to talk to you is June Moses. Who is president of the West 135th Street Apartments Tenant Association. And so she has a question for you about affordable housing. Okay,
Miss June Moses, how you doing?
How are you? It's been a pleasure to listen to you. You've been cracking me up. Oh my goodness, you got a life.
You know what? Let me tell you something. I am funny. I'm hilarious.
I see. I'm sitting here. I'm I don't even know what I'm gonna say now. I'm sitting here cracking up. This is crazy.
I know when I cracked on Eljoy, that stuff is lit, right? So anyway, I know you got a question for me. Yes. Fire away. Let me
is this the way you diffuse us like angry people when we come with our questions?
I don't want to be angry, June. I'm now getting zen. I'm going yoga. Okay, what you got for me, June?
Okay. Well, here we go. It's actually very serious. We consistently hear from candidates when they go to run about the housing crisis and what they're going to do. Year after year, we hear about these programs and these schemes that are supposed to be providing safe, low-income housing. But when we look around and see the numbers of unhoused people, there's some level of disconnect. The buildings that I represent, it's not NYCHA. It's not rent stabilized. We are a Section 8 building that is slowly being moved from Section 8 into tax credit and home. We're finding that we go outside every few months and our old neighbors who've been there forever have been gone because there's been situations where it's almost displacement. So as you think about housing in your platform, how are you thinking about making sure that we stay in our homes, even though gentrification is driving up the AMI? And that's also there's so many forces and buildings like ours get left out of the mix. No one really talks much about Section 8. No one really talks much about any of those other programs. But, we do hear about the two major ones, NYCHA and rent stabilization. So is there any thoughts that you've given to this to be able to help everybody stay in a home and really try to tackle the people without homes issue?
So the answer is yes. I have thought about it, and I will come out with a housing plan. But let me just focus on what you're describing now, Section 8, my objective when it comes to housing is to have homeownership, and homeownership for those people who, that's the ultimate goal. You get people to have homes that they can afford and homes from which they will not be displaced. Right. So I am quite sensitive to Section 8. I want to make certain that we keep that up and vibrant. And I also want to make certain that we have the resources to go to those complexes that are Section 8 complexes so that some of the financing things that are taking place doesn't displace the people currently in their homes.
That's actually good to hear.
I want to make it easier for you to stay in your home, and I want to make it more affordable for you to stay in your home at a level that you can actually afford. Because right now, it is a great time to finance because of where interest rates are, but you have to be exposed to the opportunities to do that. I want to keep you in your home. I want to keep you in your home, and I want the value of your home to go up, and I want you to be able to afford it. That's clear, right? That's what I want to have happen. And I see too many instances where people in homes like the homes in which you live are being displaced. I want to see if I can't stop that. I want to intervene to see if I can stop that, because I know where you live and I know the homes that are there and what's taking place with that. And it's complicated, but we need to keep you there. I do not want you to be displaced. When you keep your home, worked hard for it. And when it comes to Black and brown people, home ownership, when it comes to everybody, home ownership is the anchor to how they think about wealth and their well-being. And when it comes to Black and brown people, home ownership is just a fraction of what it is for the white community. This has been historic, and I want to begin at least to do something today to address that. Now, to your question about affordable housing, just let me give you some numbers. When we were building homes, we built 2.2 units of homes, 2.2 for every new job. For every new job, we built 2.2 units of housing. Today, we build 0.5 units of housing. And now, yes, ma'am.
But who does that housing go to? Because here on 135th Street, I can walk around and see some very beautiful buildings that are very empty, because affordable income housing and low income housing are absolutely two different animals. And I think because these two words are used in an interchangeable way, it's almost coming off like tax credit is a way for investors to get money. You're supposed to fix up the property. No one ever comes to see how we're actually living. They just go by the slick presentations and everybody pats themselves on the back that they're helping these low income people. But the reality is that's not how we're living. We're being displaced, but everybody still gets to, tout how they are the gold standard of low income housing and all these other things. And they put together these especially low income housing tax credits. So that is a point of contention with us, because we find that we are even less served with that on the property.
So stay with me. Let me come back to you if you allow me.
Absolutely.
Moses, you mentioned AMI.
Yes.
AMI is Westchester County AMI, $100 and some odd $1,000. What you're describing and what we have to focus on, there are two levels that you need to focus on. One is what they call deeply affordable housing, and the other is affordable housing, which is workforce housing. What you're describing, deeply affordable housing, should be the case that no person in that home should pay 50 to 60% of their income on rent. So that means I have to build housing that is for those people who make $50,000 and below, or maybe even lower. And then I have to build workforce housing for the people who are making more than that, who aspire to home ownership. But let me deal with deeply affordable housing, which has got to be for the government, for not-for-profits. And the math of this is the following. It costs for $1 billion, Mrs. Moses, $1 billion gets me 5,300 units of deeply affordable housing. That creates a lot of jobs, and $1 billion translates into about $2 billion worth of economic activity. So I need to build deeply affordable housing, which is going to create jobs and creates economic activity, which means that the people in the community who are going to be displaced are at the table first, having a conversation about what takes place in the community, because that's not what has taken place up to this point. They get a prescription, and people recognize that it's what we saw in HQ2 in Amazon. You know, all of a sudden people are saying this is what was going to happen. You go back to the neighborhood and they say, okay, had I been involved in this, I have infrastructure, I have schools, I have jobs. If I had been involved and you told me that you're going to build deeply affordable housing so I wouldn't get displaced and their project's going to occur in Harlem, if you're at the table and your community that you've been living in for as long as you've been living there, the culture of that community doesn't change, or if it changes with your input, then we've achieved what we need to achieve. If we don't do that, then we haven't. It's very clear to me. I'm not confused about the AMI. I'm not confused about the level at which we need to build. I'm not confused about what $1 billion gets me. And I'm not confused about the economic impact. And I'm certainly not confused about who needs to be at the table.
Well, hopefully you'll invite us to the table to come and sit with you. Thank you very much for breaking this down. This has been the most insightful thing that I've heard from anybody running so far. So, yay. Thank you.
Mr. Moses is going to be the most insightful. I ain't playing. I'm in this to win, okay?
I see.
I'm in this to win. You know what? I'm in this to win for us. I don't want you to be nervous about whether you're going to get displaced. I want you to live there, sit there. I want you to tell jokes and be comfortable, invite your friends over, and not have to worry about whether or not you're going to be out next year. That's what I'm worried about, okay?
Well, whenever you want to, you're free to come on by. We'll take you for the tour. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Okay. I know there's someone else waiting. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
See, I told you, Joy, Miss June think I'm funny.
No. I'm gonna have to tell people not to encourage you.
Why not?
On this.
Why not?
You are not running for the best jokes.
Who said that? Who said that? You running the mayor? You running? Listen, you got to have a sense of humor if you're the mayor. Got to.
Well, that is true. You definitely have to have a sense of humor when it comes.
I got directed, but I got humor on the way. Okay.
Yeah. Well, to your point there, Peter on Facebook was also asking a question about slowing down gentrification, or I think really when people are talking about gentrification, they're talking about displacement, because everybody likes, in your neighborhood, the services that you've been asking for in your neighborhood for a long time. Everybody wants that. I just don't want to have to be pushed out of my community or no longer afford my community in order to get those services. So I think a lot of people are talking about the displacement factor. And
I completely agree. Our community should not be displaced. They shouldn't be transformed overnight. And we don't have any input into what how that's going to actually look. So I get what the reaction is, and it's a legitimate reaction.
Yeah. Well, we have another questioner coming up. I'm going to start by asking her not to encourage you and say that you're funny. But Miss Owens, thank you so much for joining us.
You got a whole bunch of paper back there. Well, a whole bunch of awards.
The only one I'm looking at is the one in the corner right there.
Yeah, I'm looking at the one in the corner.
If they don't have a check with them, okay?
Who's the one in the corner? Who's the artist and who's the one in the corner? I'm looking at that.
If you have to have your Father God and Jesus Christ hanging from the wall, he might as well look like you. So there
Look at that. Go ahead on and do it. Okay. Willie won't. All the time. Go ahead on and show him off, okay?
Okay.
Miss Owens is joining us. Ms. Owens is joining us, and she runs a nonprofit, the Association of Women Construction Workers of America. She's a retired construction worker, and she has a question about your infrastructure plan. So, Ms. Owens, I'll let you go ahead and ask.
Well, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to hear you here tonight and to have seen you this past weekend answer several questions, and one that I had at that point. So I'm glad to be a part of this. And just like in a two-part question, what will be your steps as mayor of New York to ensure that the proposed infrastructure jobs that hire people from the communities that are disadvantaged, and particularly women, because that's my interest as a women's organization and in construction, how do we make sure that women are on that job that comes up in their neighborhoods where they don't have to leave their neighborhoods to go into others, take trains when there's work right there? And I'm going to add to that, too, because you were talking about earlier before the first guest, and I appreciate the first questioner that you just had. But you were talking about equal pay. So even with that, with the questions that I'm asking now, as a construction worker in a local union, yes, we get equal pay. The downfall is if we don't get equal time, does that add up to equal pay? My answer would be no. I'd like to hear how you would handle that to make sure that women are getting equal time so that the equal pay actually equals out. And, how would you help new hires actually enter into the unions? What are your relationships with unions, construction unions, that would ensure that women and men that are coming out of prison, off of any kind of substance, that have cleaned themselves up, that are trying to get into the industry, would have an easier time to actually get into these unions? Because as we are a pre-apprenticeship program, which is one way to help, but how would you take care of that? Because that helps with their future and annuity, health insurance, job creation continuously, and they're able to buy into home ownership opportunities. So if you could help me answer with that, I'd appreciate it.
Ms. Owens, you packed a lot in there, but let's see if I can unpack it and give you some responses here. A high priority, if you look at my economic plan, it is the largest, most inclusive, by design, most inclusive economic comeback in the history of this city. I specifically said most inclusive because I know who has been excluded. And what it includes is infrastructure. Go big, go small, go forward. Go big, infrastructure. I'll come back to that. Go small, focus on small businesses to give them a lifeline, and go forward, making certain that the minority, Black and women businesses get their fair share of these contracts. Not just a contract that is a response to an RFP, but continuous, so that people can grow their businesses. And that is part of the overall plan. When it comes to how we allocate dollars in procurement and construction, the mayor has the responsibility and the right to make certain that these contracts and that procurement is done equitably and inclusively. Up to this point, that hasn't happened. And so on my watch, I'll make certain that it does happen. As you know, in construction, as an example, we have a goal of 8% for MWBs. Today, I think they've achieved a goal of 0.7%, which to me is just zero performance. And even if I double, triple, quadruple, quintuple that, we're not where we need to be. And so the thing that I would do is I would break up the contracts to make certain that you and others could give me the right team to build, who could get the contracts, execute on those contracts, and grow. So it's on a continuous basis. Then what I would do is to simultaneously invest in workforce training. I've outlined $100 million for 15,000 to take people from being basic, who may not have a skill set, so they can, and to bridge, so they can come into your apprenticeship programs. Because you can't run a remedial business in your apprenticeship programs. People have to come there, be prepared to be apprentices. And so my plan is going to make certain that we give them the basic, we give them a bridge, and that we invest in this workforce training, so that when the contracts do come up, that we have the workforce that's trained and ready to be able to benefit from and participate in those contracts. It also means that in my prevention, the prevention part of how I think about homelessness, how I think about jobs, that we began to develop relationships with those who are formerly incarcerated to transition them into the workforce. And today we don't have that. Today I have 12,000 homeless men, I got 5,000 homeless women, and I got 25 to 30,000 homeless families. And we need to have opportunities for these families, these men and women, to participate. And that's how I think about it. And the example that I have, which you may know, it's an example that I use to give you reference so that it has been done before. It is what Harold Washington did in Chicago, and it's what Maynard Jackson did on a much larger scale in Atlanta. I'll take that playbook, I will modernize it to make certain that the contracts, that the construction doesn't happen unless and until I see people who look like me who are participating in a way that is long-term, that builds the businesses.
Okay. And that's great. I like those two examples, as I mentioned before, when I had met you on your last tour. We here in New York, right here at JFK, under Delta took a big stance, Delta Airline, to become their own GC. They had a stakeholders team, which I was a part of, along with a lot of other members from this community, to sit back and show how they could help bring on minority contractors into their workforce, which weren't getting jobs on the airport. That model turned out to work very well because there were opportunities for minority contractors to get jobs, contracts that they wouldn't have automatically gotten in the airport because of the middleman. A lot of also minority contractors, when you talk about MWBEs, they work with these larger GCs, have been put out of the industry because of not getting their money on time. And then I'm gonna go back into even the union thing, is to become a union contractor. I've heard from them, it's very hard sometimes. I've seen examples where they've actually not been able to stay in business. So it's twofold with everything. Being able to make sure that the MWBE contractors, and we know that W stands for white women, so we definitely want to make sure that we include a WM in there for Black women and minority women, right? Okay, so we want to be able to make sure that that happens with all the projects that are going on. And as someone who really concentrates more so on workforce, when I ride around the city, all around the city, I do not see my sisters nor my brothers reflected, be it my complexion or lighter. You understand? I just do not see them. And as someone who has been in the industry, who trains others to get into the industry, I see a need for that to be changed. Because in order to build economic wealth through workforce, construction is that area that you can do it from soup to nuts. And in order for that same family or that person who is starting over, a single woman, a person who's coming out of incarceration, to be able to build generational wealth, we need to be assured that they are able to get into these jobs that are paying more than minimum wage, but paying prevailing wages, which also offers them medical insurance, which offers them pensions in the end of their working careers. So I don't want to keep you too much longer. I really do appreciate it. If there's any more you want to add to that, I'll listen to it.
What I'm going to add to that is, the order for us to get out of this crisis, we have to grow. Yes. We have to build. I talked to the construction, the Congress of Construction. I looked at their budget. I have their plan here, which I've gone through. I look at the demographics in their plan. I have what we did for a decade of results for the MTA. I know the plans out there. I've studied the plans. I know the shortcomings of these plans and the successes of these plans. And what I recognize in a leadership role is what I've done in the private sector. And it is likely that I have created more job opportunities and more wealth creation in the private sector and what I've been able to do over 3 decades than all the other candidates combined. So if there's somebody who's going to be focused on this, I'm focused on this. And with the authority to say who gets what, if folk don't look like you, it's over, and we can just wait it out till it happens.
Wow. Thank you so very much, Ms. Owens. Thank you so much for that question and that opportunity.
Thank you.
And I thank you for meeting him and then asking the follow-up question and joining us.
Well, I will say thank you very much. Thank you for taking out this time and being available to those who would like to know more about you and what your platform is. And I, like your past guest a moment ago, will ask to or open the invitation that when you do become mayor, because I'm quite sure that you're going to become mayor with the way that you're going about this, that you let us be available to you to help you through the workforce.
Well, I want to tell you something, Miss Herlima Owens.
Yes.
You can call me, okay?
So.
Okay, you got to. I don't lead or manage by a press release. I ain't so, those photo ops that all the other people do. Okay, interesting, but I got to get something done. Right, my word said that the up on your right hand side, or what's over your right shoulder. What your word said, be known by your deeds. Be known by your deeds. Okay, I got receipts.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I
Okay.
enjoyed this moment. Have a great evening.
Okay.
Wow, I love this that some people are on the fence because Miss Moses told me earlier she ain't decide who she voting for yet. So hopefully you swayed her.
I need Miss Moses. Wherever she is, Miss June Moses, I need you. Miss June, I'll be clear, Miss June Moses, ain't no Calvary. I don't care how big and how powerful your binoculars. You look over the horizon, they ain't coming. It's us. That's all we got.
Well, we do have some additional questions from folks who were a bit camera shy, but I don't require people to get on camera in order to ask their questions. It's not something we want to do.
Are you camera shy, Joy?
No, by no means. I've gotten rid of the I'm trying to slowly get rid of the shyness.
I'm a little camera shy, except on Friday night with L. Joy.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, this question is actually from a teacher, Matt. He's a public school teacher. And his question is, do you support mayoral control? And if so, what is your plan to be more inclusive of educators and parents, and also hold yourself accountable in between elections? When I talked to Matt and he asked this question, he's like, yes, it's good to have one person be held accountable. But even as mayor, if you're not doing a good job, people don't have until the next election to hold you accountable. So let's give you an example, give you opportunity to answer that about your support or not support of mayoral control. And then what are some of the other measures that you plan to do differently?
So the answer unequivocally, Matt, is yes, I want mayoral control and I want to be held accountable. I would not be here without education. I think you know a little bit about my story, where I came up and how my single mother raised me, and her sacrifice and education got me here, and along with prayer, obviously, because this has been a walk of faith. Yes, I want mayoral control. I look at what is taking place. As you know the numbers, Matt, if I look at 3rd through 8th grade, based on the state's report, 3rd through 8th grade, Black and brown kids, 70% below proficient in math and reading. That is a crisis. So I want to start earlier. My plan is cradle to career, cradle to job. Pre-K is good, but many of our kids get to pre-K and they're already behind. So I want to make certain that, as you know, Matt, between 0 and 4, our children are learning as they're developing. So I want to make certain that we have affordable childcare and that we have affordable care for our caregivers. And then, Matt, this is what I'm going to do. I want to make certain from my account that by the end of the 3rd grade, every child in New York City can read. By the end of the 3rd grade, every child in New York City can read and do math. Why is that, Matt? Because as you know, as a teacher, that between 0 and the end of the 3rd grade, our children are learning to read. After that, they're reading to learn. The crisis is that too many of our kids didn't learn to read between 0 and the end of the 3rd grade. So I want to stop there, which is the transition year, and make certain that every child can read, either through with the involvement of you as an educator. And if we need to certify a tutors corps to do this, get college students to come in and help me out. But I want to make certain that that none of our students in the 3rd grade without being able to read. It is far too long now that our child's lives and our lives have been determined by the zip code in which we grew up, either born, raised, or it's a zip code, and that determines it. We cannot sustain that. The system is not working. The educators are amongst the most noble professions that exist. And so we have to work with them. I want to be held accountable, first from that 3rd grade. And then I want to make certain that by beginning of the 6th grade, our students are at least 2 things. They need to be digitally literate and they need to be financially literate. And I want to make sure that they get exposed to different career opportunities. They can be a welder. They can be a coder. They can be a plumber. They can be a software engineer. I want to give them a summer job beginning at the 6th grade so that by the time they graduate, they can go and follow that career or that job that they've to which they've been exposed, or go to a 2-year or 4-year college. And summer jobs are so important. I had a summer job. I dug ditches. I laid tile. I changed bedpans. I took out IVs. I built boxes in the basement of Phil's dress shop. I was a gopher, but you know what? I felt good. I got a check. I got paid, and it kept me out of trouble. So that's what I want to own, and I want to be held accountable, and I want to make certain that the scorecard is a public scorecard, not 25% graduation rate and say that I ought to applaud myself for that, but a scorecard to determine that our kids are actually getting educated. And whatever public-private partnerships that need to occur, I'll do that. There's an example in Brooklyn, PS 272 with Dakota Keys. What an extraordinary educator. School was an F when she got it, and now it's an A. Public-private partnerships. Able to come in and support her as she got the curriculum and the teachers in the right place and have the resources. It shouldn't be the case that any one of our schools that kids don't have crayons. How can that be? So it's got to stop now, because otherwise we know what we're creating and we know what we've inherited because of the abject failure. I want to work with the teachers, and I want to come up with a plan so that we can stop the crisis.
Well, thank you for that. I'm sure they'll appreciate the response. You're mentioning, you made mention of summer jobs, and there was another camera shy, and I can tell why. This is, a high school student. The fact that he would even ask the question is good to begin with. But he said, I did a summer job before, but they had me get people's breakfast and do stuff they didn't want to do. I want to get a summer job where I can do more. When reading more of the question, because I couldn't put the whole thing on the screen, he also mentioned that his mom made him get up and actually apply for the summer youth employment. But as you know, there's only a limited amount of summer youth jobs available every summer. And he talked about that he had a job, but not all of his friends had one. And his question really was, can you help him and his friends get a job? But I wanted you to give an opportunity for you to talk about summer youth jobs.
Kevin, high school student in the Bronx, I want you to have a job. Part of my education plan, which I've just gone through, is that every kid who wants a job, every young person who wants a job gets a summer job. Now, if that means I'm going to have public-private partnerships to make certain these jobs are meaningful jobs. But yes, I want to make certain, and part of my plan is to make certain that you all have a summer job. That's the future. And I don't want a summer job where you're getting somebody's breakfast and doing stuff that other people don't want to do. I want you to have a meaningful summer job, because you getting somebody else's breakfast and doing things that other people don't want to do is not giving you the exposure that I'm referring to. I want you to get exposed to whatever interest you have, and so that your interests evolve and you're getting compensated as your interests evolve. But you have a meaningful summer job. I've done it all. So you may be exposed to, digging a ditch or laying tile, and that may not be a profession which you choose, but at least you get exposed and you get paid. Now there's so many different opportunities than the ones that I had. I want to make certain that you get exposed to those opportunities and that you feel good about what you're doing and that you're learning. That's how I think about it.
I think that's so important. I remember I've had so many different summer jobs, and some of those skills that I used on those jobs, I've been able to use in different times in my professional career, like learning how to do, working at a summer camp and corralling 300 kids, are skills that you may need to learn later, and sort of how
I don't know what you're going to need to have in 5 years. That's you. I didn't say anything about those skills. I didn't say anything about that, Joy. That's on you. I didn't say anything.
Goodness.
Okay, but you're right. You learn it in summer camp. You may have to use it soon. Who knows? So,
Jesus. I can't with you. I cannot with you. Okay, there's somebody else asking a question that I'm pretty sure you cannot answer about what your stock picks. I mean,
my
you
stock
can't
pick. I ain't no stock picker. Who's that? Somebody trolling or something? I ain't no stock picker. What is my stock pick?
Well, I think people have a misconception that because people work on Wall Street and work in finance, that the equivalent is, what stocks, should I pick? But there's a wide variety of what people do who work on Wall Street and work in finance. And, I don't want you to go through the detail of your experience, but, you could talk about, you make the point of how you've invested in other businesses and entities. Talk a bit more about that.
Yeah. So but I will tell you, I'm going to go a little off script here. I will go off script. I do have a stock pick.
Oh
I do have
my.
a stock pick. And I want everybody here, everybody within the sound, they say, in the sound of my voice, and you can record it here. It will go up. It will go up, and you will generate so much wealth. And that stock pick is New York City. I'd bet on New York City. That's where I'd place my bet.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
So that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about advising New York City and having New York City continue to be the greatest city on the planet. Take what I've been able to do, what they call my lived experiences. I'm now learning that's what I'm not a politician. They call how I grew up is lived experience. Take what I've been able to do there and what I've been able to do in business and helping to create wealth and get people jobs and get them promoted and compensated, and apply that same skill set to that stock pick I just gave you. It's going up. It's going up. And the reason it's going up because while I did the things that I did, I had the best team and I had the support. And so as I look at this, I have the best team. Eljoy is helping lead that team. And the support are the people here who are part of this and who are part of this every Friday night. That's the support we need to make sure that stock pick that I just gave you is a stock pick that today will rise to unprecedented heights. If I were betting, I'd bet on this. I'd bet on that stock.
Well, Ray, that is definitely a great stock pick. One that I would, that I am invested in myself. Raising a family here, gonna buy a house here. You're gonna have to drag me out.
I'm all in. We're trying to make that. I'm trying to make that house bigger. You're gonna need it. And make certain that you are so fully invested here that you will realize that your investment has paid off dividends and returns higher than you ever expected. That's the commitment. That's what we got to do. That's what we're about.
And we have to do that for everybody, for every New
That
Yorker.
is for everybody. That's what this is all about. 100%. That's what this is all about for every New Yorker. That's why I'm saying across the board, even for those who are trolling, and I want to make certain that those who are trolling know that my number one stock pick with my leadership and our team and all New Yorkers is New York City. That's the bet.
I love it. Well, we have time for one more question, which I think is a great point to end. Heidi from Facebook also asked this question about how you talk about your career to voters to help them understand the connection that you're just not, I know you have a feeling about this that people think, oh, he's Wall Street. He can't understand what people are going through, whether it's in this COVID reality or even before COVID, and how you are managing that to talk to people and engage with them and humanize your experience.
That is a great question. I was just in Washington Heights a week or two ago, walking through the NYCHA homes. And I was met there by Melvin Pena and his girlfriend. And I remember having met Melvin Pena when I was at a restaurant at a gala, a banquet. And Melvin Pena was a waiter. And Melvin Pena tapped me on my shoulder and said, I have seen some of the things that you have done in your career, and I really would like to get a job and like to have somewhat of a career. So Melvin Pena called me, and Melvin Pena interviewed, and Melvin Pena got a job. And after 2 to 3 years of this job, and Melvin and I kept in good contact, frequent contact. And I kind of began to test him on what experiences he was having, not dissimilar to the experiences that were outlined here, where the student was asked to get the breakfast for someone because other people didn't want to do it. So I asked Melvin what he'd been doing. And when Melvin explained to me what he'd been doing, it was very clear to me that Melvin wasn't being trained the way that Melvin should have been trained. He was a young man who didn't know the language of the business world. And so he got in and they tried to have him do things which they thought were his natural skills. And while they may have been his natural skills, they weren't the skills that he needed to have going forward. So we got Melvin change into a job that would give him the skill set. And when I saw Melvin and his girlfriend in Washington Heights, he said, I grew up just a block or so away from here in the housing complex here. And he was a student at the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School of Business. And so he had come from being a waiter at Cipriani's, which is a restaurant, where he tapped on my shoulder, to being a graduate student at Wharton. And he and his girlfriend were with me the entire time that I was in the Bronx. And we talked about his experiences and talked about the journey he had made from Washington Heights. So if there's any language about my career that describes what I've been able to do, it's Melvin Pena. And it's the kinds of things that I've been fortunate to do in extending the ladder to the Melvin Penas of the world. So he was compensated, he was promoted, he got a job, he got promoted, he got compensated, and then he decided to go on and improve himself by getting even more education. And I am so fortunate and proud of Melvin Pena and others like Melvin Pena, whose lives I've been fortunate to have some small impact in. That's how I would describe my time. And that's how I would describe it to the voters.
Well, Ray, it's been great. Another Friday night. Next week, are you going to be on time?
Yeah, I'm always on time. I'm always on time. Y'all just missed me a little bit tonight. I can't tell what happened, but at least I thought I was on time, and maybe I've been a little, just a little after. But y'all know where I was tonight. Last Friday, I had to talk to my mother, but this Friday she was where she needed to be. So this Friday was Leo, the 8-year-old, and so that's what's going down. I now have 3. I got Ella, who's the 18-year-old, Cole, who's a 20-year-old, and then it's my wife. So anything could happen. Anything could happen at the 7 o'clock hour.
So basically what you're saying is you have 3 other excuses.
I got 3 other options here, but I'm just giving you a heads up. So if I'm a little tardy, y'all know one of those 3 options is why. It ain't because of me. Okay? That's all right. What it is.
It's everybody else, not you.
Yeah. Well, that's always the case. No, it's always me. It is always me, Joy. It is always me. So I take that. Anything that happens good is for their account. Anything that's not so good is for my account. I take that responsibility.
Got you.
I may share it, but I take that responsibility.
Well, you're heading out in the streets this weekend safely, of course.
I'm out there. I'm out going to see the people in the neighborhood. I'm so happy about that. I will be not on this Zoom. I'll be out in the neighborhoods. I'm going to Brooklyn. I'm going to Queens. I'm going to the Bronx. I'm going to Harlem. I may even make it to Staten Island. I'm out there. I'll be there.
Well, for anyone else, if you're looking to join us on a Friday live and want, not camera shy and want to join us to ask Ray a question, you can certainly do that. You can go to rayformayor.com. If you want to donate, you can go to rayformayor.com. $5 contribution, just $5.
Just $5. Just $5.
Just $5. Put 5 on it. To help bet on New York.
That bet, Nefertiti. Look at you. Show that Nefertiti. Look at you. Step up there. That's royalty. Okay. Go ahead on, excellent.
And you can go to rayformayor.com to see any of Ray's plans, the comeback plan, our public safety and justice plan. Go to rayformayor.com is where you can find everything. You can follow us on social media to keep up with what Ray is doing during the week. And then we'll be back here next Friday. And maybe you'll be on live with Ray when he's on time. Okay.
There you go. I'm going to leave the rest of my night and just go be hilarious. Okay. Thank you.
Gosh. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, thank you, Ray. And
all righty. Thank you. All righty.